Ethan Parker slammed his textbook shut, rubbing his eyes until they burned. Another hour had slipped by, and yet the chemical equations in front of him looked exactly the same as when he'd started. He could recite the words, repeat the formulas, even mimic the steps for balancing reactions, but understanding? That remained stubbornly out of reach. "Why can't I just get this?" he muttered under his breath. Leaning back in his chair, his bedroom felt smaller than usual, the walls closing in as the weight of expectations pressed down on him. Outside, the late afternoon sun cast golden streaks across the suburban Ohio neighborhood. But Ethan didn't notice. He was trapped in a loop of frustration, fatigue, and self-doubt. "Ethan, dinner in 10 minutes, his mother called from downstairs. Her voice was gentle, but even kindness carried a subtle reminder. You have to succeed. He let out a groan and buried his face in his hands. His parents, John and Sarah, worked long hours. He knew they were proud of him, but they also had dreams tied to his achievements. First in the family to attend a top university. That was the unspoken goal. Ethan had tried, God. He had tried. 5-6 hours of studying each day. Flashcards in vibrant colors, YouTube tutorials, rewriting notes until his hand cramped. And yet, every attempt felt like climbing a mountain that never got any smaller. Downstairs, the faint sound of his little sister practicing piano added to the background hum of his frustration. He envied the way she could flow through a piece effortlessly, while he was stuck on the same chemical equilibrium problem for what felt like the 100th time. He glanced at his phone. A notification popped up from Max, his classmate. Got the chemistry homework done in 20 minutes. Come on, man, this stuff is easy. Ethan's stomach twisted. He hated feeling incompetent in front of his peers. Yet he couldn't blame Max. It was natural for some things to click instantly for others. Still, the comparison gnawed at him. Ethan flipped his book open again. Determined to force comprehension, he read the first paragraph. Then the second. Then the same first paragraph again. His eyes blurred, and he realized he hadn't absorbed a single word. I'm not lazy. I'm not stupid, he whispered to himself, but the words didn't convince him. It wasn't laziness. It wasn't a lack of effort. Ethan's problem was that he had been studying for all the wrong reasons. Every note he copied, every formula he memorized, every practice problem he crammed through was done to escape discomfort, to avoid disappointing his parents, to avoid the embarrassment of being the slow kid in his friend group, to avoid the anxiety that came with imagining a future where he didn't get into a good university. The knowledge itself was secondary. The real enemy wasn't chemistry, it was fear. One particularly rough afternoon, Ethan found himself wandering the quiet aisles of the school library, ostensibly to procrastinate on another study session. His hand brushed against an old, faded green book, The Dialogues of Plato. Curious, he pulled it down and sat cross-legged on the floor. He flipped open a page at random, scanning the words. At first, the dialogue seemed alien, dense, and uninviting, but one line arrested him. Wonder is the true mark of the philosopher. Philosophy has no other origin than this. Ethan read it again, slowly. The tension in his chest eased, replaced by a flicker of intrigue. The idea was simple, yet revolutionary. Being confused wasn't failure, it was the doorway to understanding. The Greeks had even named it thalmazine, the philosophical wonder that ignites genuine inquiry. For the first time in months, Ethan realized that his problem wasn't a lack of intelligence or discipline. It was that he had been running from confusion at every step, seeking the comfort of familiarity instead of letting his mind wrestle with questions. He leaned back against the bookshelf, letting the concept sink in. Curiosity, wonder, confusion. These weren't obstacles, they were the path forward. The textbooks, the flashcards, the endless hours of rote memorization, they weren't the enemy. But his approach to them had been. For the first time that afternoon, Ethan felt a small spark of hope. He didn't know how exactly it would help with chemistry, or if it would improve his test scores. But he understood one thing clearly: he needed to learn differently. He needed to let himself linger in questions, to dwell in the discomfort of not knowing, and to let understanding grow naturally. And for the first time in a long time, the thought of opening his chemistry book didn't make him wince with dread. Ethan closed the Plato book, carefully placed it back on the shelf, and walked home with a sense of purpose. The mountain was still there, of course. But now it seemed like a challenge he could climb, not a punishment he had to endure. And somewhere deep inside, he knew this was just the beginning. The next afternoon, Ethan sat back at his desk. His chemistry textbook open to the chapter he had always avoided, chemical equilibrium. He stared at the page for a long time. The familiar rows of double arrows, constants, and shifting concentrations feeling both intimidating and strangely inviting. Normally, he would have skimmed, memorized the formulas, and moved on, hoping a familiar test question would appear. But today was different. "Why does this happen?" he whispered, leaning over his notebook. "Why do these reactions reach equilibrium? Not just how to solve them, but why?" He closed his eyes, imagining the molecules in motion. They weren't just abstract symbols anymore. In his mind, atoms collided, bonded, separated, in a delicate dance of motion and balance. He grabbed a blank sheet of paper and began sketching what he saw. Tiny spheres joining and breaking apart. Arrows indicating energy shifts. Concentrations rising and falling in rhythm. Time passed, unnoticed. 10 minutes stretched into 20. The rest of the world faded away. No notifications. No noise. Just the rhythmic scratch of his pencil and the hum of his imagination. Confusion didn't feel uncomfortable, it felt alive. It was the engine driving him toward understanding. When he finally glanced at the textbook explanation, something remarkable happened. The words weren't filling a void, they were confirming the understanding he had built himself. For the first time, comprehension didn't feel like something imposed from outside. It had emerged from within. Ethan leaned back, exhaling slowly, a grin spreading across his face. "I get it. I actually get it." Over the next few days, Ethan began applying this new approach to all his subjects. History became more than a series of dates. He asked himself, why did this war start now? And not 50 years earlier? What were the economic, political, and social forces at play? He drew timelines, connected events, and debated theories with himself, savoring the way each question led to another, deeper one. Math, too, transformed. Equations were no longer mere symbols on a page, they became visual landscapes. Ethan drew diagrams, traced patterns, and asked, why, at every step. Each moment of confusion wasn't a setback, it was an invitation to dig deeper. Of course, this approach wasn't without challenges. Homework that used to take him 10 minutes now took an hour or more. His friends finished quickly and sometimes teased him. Dude, just solve the problem and move on. You're overthinking everything, Max said one afternoon, laughing as Ethan's pencil paused mid-calculation. Ethan looked up, meeting Max's amused gaze. I could do that, he admitted, but then I wouldn't actually understand it. And understanding, that's what matters. Max shrugged, smirking, but Ethan felt a surge of quiet satisfaction. He didn't need approval. He was learning for himself now, not to impress anyone else. In class, the shift was noticeable. While his peers jotted down every word the teacher said and hurried through examples, Ethan paused to question, to challenge, to visualize. Sometimes, the teacher would frown. Ethan, we need to move on. You'll understand this better later, she said, gently but firmly. But Ethan had discovered the difference between memorization and comprehension. Understanding couldn't be rushed. It had to be wrestled with, explored, and digested. When he sat with confusion long enough, patterns emerged, connections formed, concepts clicked, and once they clicked, the knowledge stayed. Even his relationship with failure changed. Before, a poor quiz score would crush him. Now, it became a roadmap. Each mistake highlighted a gap in understanding, an opportunity to explore further. He no longer feared getting the wrong answer, he feared not questioning enough. One evening, as Ethan sketched molecular interactions for the umpteenth time, his mother peeked into the room. Still at it? She asked, half amused, half concerned. Yeah, Ethan said, smiling without looking up, but it's different now. I'm actually figuring things out. Sarah nodded slowly. I see, you look happy. Actually. Ethan grinned. I am. It's weird. I used to hate studying. Now I like it, because I'm curious. Not because I had to get it right. That night, he lay in bed reflecting on the week's progress. The shift wasn't instant, and it hadn't been easy. But he had started to taste something profound, the joy of learning for its own sake. The fear of confusion had been replaced by fascination. Questions no longer threatened him, they beckoned him forward. Ethan thought back to Plato and Aristotle, to the notion of thalmazine. Curiosity wasn't just a fun distraction, it was a tool, a pathway to mastery. The longer he lingered in confusion, the stronger his understanding grew. Focus wasn't a skill he needed to force, it emerged naturally when he was genuinely captivated by the questions in front of him. And in those moments, as he stared at a particularly tricky equation or a historical puzzle, Ethan understood something even deeper. This wasn't just about chemistry or history. This was a lesson for life. Confusion wasn't the enemy, it was the beginning of growth. The spark of curiosity was the secret philosophers had known all along, and now, for the first time, he had discovered it for himself. The morning of the college entrance exam arrived with a crisp chill in the air. Ethan Parker walked through the quiet streets toward the high school auditorium. His backpack slung over one shoulder. A sense of calm settled over him. Gone was the frantic panic that had haunted him in previous exams. Today, he felt steady. He had spent months learning not just how to solve problems, but how to think deeply. When he entered the exam hall, he noticed the usual chaos: students hunched over their papers, pencils scratching, some whispering formulas, some silently panicking. Ethan found his seat near the window. Letting the light fall across his desk, he opened the test booklet and saw the first section, chemistry. His stomach didn't clench. The first question, about chemical equilibrium, was unlike anything he'd memorized. A series of unfamiliar values and shifting conditions stared up at him. He smiled. Instead of panicking or flipping through formulas frantically, he closed his eyes for a moment. In his mind, he visualized the molecules as he had countless times before, colliding, binding, separating, the microscopic dance of energy and motion. The answer didn't feel forced, it emerged naturally from understanding. Pencil met paper, lines forming calculations and sketches in harmony with his mental visualization. 3 hours later, Ethan left the auditorium, exhausted but exhilarated. He didn't know his score yet, but it didn't matter. For the first time, he realized the value wasn't in a grade, it was in the process itself. Months of embracing confusion, of lingering in questions instead of fleeing from them, had paid off. He understood deeply, and that understanding was something no test could erase. 6 weeks later, the acceptance letter arrived. Ethan tore open the envelope to reveal the results. Accepted. Scoring in the 95th percentile. The university he had dreamed of seemed almost impossible before, but now it was reality. His joy was undeniable, but even greater than the score was the recognition that he had learned how to learn. At college orientation, Ethan observed his peers. Many stayed up late memorizing, cramming formulas and facts without understanding. They chased temporary achievements, high scores, social approval, the illusion of competence. Ethan had once done the same. Now he approached his studies differently. He asked why, dwelled in confusion, visualized concepts, and built foundational understanding that could be applied across subjects. His first chemistry lecture at college reinforced his transformation. The professor introduced complex concepts, far more intricate than anything in high school. Some students furrowed their brows. Others scrambled through notes. Ethan paused to think, questioned the underlying principles, and sketched mental models of molecules and reactions. He realized that the difference between temporary success and lasting mastery was willingness to sit with uncertainty and curiosity-driven exploration. Later that day, a former classmate from high school approached him, a mixture of curiosity and envy in his eyes. "Ethan, how do you manage to remember all this stuff? I feel like I forget everything the moment I step away from my notes." Ethan smiled gently. "I don't really remember," he admitted. "I understand. When you truly understand something, you don't need to memorize it. It stays with you because you've built it yourself." Walking back to his dorm, Ethan reflected on the journey. He remembered Plato, Aristotle, and the concept of thalmazine, the philosophical wonder that turns confusion into understanding. He realized that the secret the philosophers had known 2.400 years ago was simple yet profound. Learning doesn't come from rushing to answers. It comes from engaging with the questions. Curiosity fuels focus, and productive confusion lays the foundation for genuine knowledge. Ethan thought about viewers like you, sitting at a desk, staring at a textbook, frustrated and wondering why focus seems impossible. Here's the lesson he learned, and the one he wants to share. Focus isn't a skill you force. It's a natural side effect of curiosity. Confusion isn't your enemy, it's your fuel. The next time you open a book, don't ask, how do I solve this quickly? Ask, why does this work this way? Sit with that question, explore it, let your brain do the rest. If Ethan's journey has inspired you, take a moment to think about the subject you've been avoiding. What question have you been running from? Allow yourself to dwell in it. Embrace the uncertainty, and watch how understanding emerges naturally. Thank you for watching the entire video and sharing this journey of curiosity and learning. If this story resonated with you, leave a comment below about which subject you'll tackle using curiosity and productive confusion this week. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss future videos filled with insights, inspiration, and stories that can change the way you think about learning and life itself. Remember, confusion isn't failure, it's the first step toward mastery. Curiosity isn't optional, it's essential. Embrace it, and the path to focus and understanding will follow.